Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
It
Force.
is very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
And pleasant good evening to you, our valued listening audience. Welcome one, welcome all. Welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain, a wonderful producer for tonight's show, none other than the great, the maestro himself, Mr. Craig Gibson. We're coming to you live via Love 97 FM. This is Tuesday, the 4th day of November, 2025. And if it's a Tuesday, you know the deal. It's Maritime Tick, 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 Tick Matters. We encourage that if you're driving and tune in with us, please do so cautiously and ensure to take your time in getting wherever it is you are trying to get safely. As the saying goes, drive to arrive alive. Our sponsors for tonight's show are 101 Pharmacy and also Island Care Pharmacy. For all your medication needs, check out my little cousin, Shantia Hill McBride, and her lovely team at 101 Pharmacy in Nassau and Island Care Pharmacy up there in the northern city of Freeport. Fill your prescription at the store or send your refills via the online site 101pharmacy.com. That's 101 Pharmacy, all lowercase, all one word, .com. The 3 locations are East Street South. And of course, when you go in there, you got to say hi to my girl Joy. She is the pharmacist and she knows just how to fix you up. So that's East Street South, 2nd location, Charles Sanders Highway. And you know my cousin, good cousin, Silla run things, and that one. Silla is the one who runs the money. So just let her know when you go in there, Silla. I was listening to Maritime Matters, and Captain Bain said, when I come in here, you can give me a little something, something of that something, something, and Silla will fix you up. Silla and Silla Hairboy, that's my girl. That's my cuz, and you know how we carry on. We're a tight family, so can't get between us. And last but not least, we got Island Care Pharmacy up there in the 2nd city of Freeport, Grand Bahama, and you know who run things in that one. That's the one opposite, you know the road where Scotiabank is, Explorers Way? Yeah, it's almost directly opposite the Region Center. Well, close to the Scotiabank side, right? And you know, they got everything you need. Once you go in there, and again, you could call online, but you know, my cousin, my little cousin Shantia Hill McBride, she don't play. She makes sure everything ticking. So when you go in that Island Care Pharmacy, you ask for my big cuz Steph. And if she ain't that means she ducking work. Steph, if Steph, like, you know how we go, right? I can call it like it is. That if she ain't there, she ducking work. And I can tell her boss, who is Shani. And Shani said, daughter, oh Lord, what I get my trouble into? Anyway, we got up there in Freeport, Island Care Pharmacy. They got what you need. They got what you want. Just go in there, heal up everybody. And my big cuz could give you a little something, something of that something, something as you go along. So there you go. We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. And that's us. We are on East Street South. We're also in Freeport in the Merport building. And we provide a full slate of ISPS Maritime Security Services. Just check my girl, Dawn Marie Simonet in Nassau. She run everything. Once you need some service, she can fix you up. If she need to call me, she call me. But she can handle it. And in Freeport, of course, we got the Mrs. Lydia Henfield. She know how to do things. She was a Ferguson voice. Now I gotta leave that Ferguson out, because them Ferguson people is my people. So that's how we rolling with Maritime Matters tonight. We got our two sponsors. We bigging them up because for the past 2.5 years, they kept the show going. And that's how we roll. And if you want to sponsor the show, feel free. Hit us up at any time. We got a website. All you got to do is go to YouTube and go to Maritime Matters Bahamas, and we comes up and everything comes up. Or call the studio. You could call Love 97 and we will be happy to respond to your call and get you all sorted out. Good night to my great Auntie May. And she ain't my great auntie, she's my auntie. Right? But guess what? Auntie May, 92 years old and going strong. She live up there in Freeport. Well, she grew up in Roll Avenue. No, she ain't grew up in Roll Avenue. I grew up in Roll Avenue, and that's where I know her from. But now she lives in Freeport with her lovely 3 daughters. Right? And I can tell you, well, make that 4 daughters. Lord, I was leaving out Yvonne. We got Lauren, we got Margot, and what my God, sister name, oh Lord, I can get killed. Bernice. And then Yvonne. 4 daughters. She had 2 sons, God, and of course, Big Daddy Dwayne, who was a chief petty officer on the Defense Force. Both of them passed. And her husband George, my Uncle George, passed. And so it's only her and the 4 girls left. And guess what? Annie Mae is 92 and going strong. Strong. And strong. My girl easy. She tell me today, say she ain't going outside too much this past week. Say, but she can make up this week by making sure I go outside and catch some sun every now and then, get that good old vitamin D. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we engage discussions on numerous maritime events. But the big one, of course, is the continued destruction of suspected smuggling boats off the eastern coast of South America by none other than the U.S. Armed Forces. We hope to also have discussions surrounding the impacting growth of the cruise ship industry. Cruise ships in that industry, they are doing big things. They're making much more money. They're making much more ships. They're getting bigger. They're getting more beautiful. Boy, look here. If you ain't never been on a big-time cruise with one of these big-time fancy ships, you ain't know what you're missing. You better do that before you get called home to Jordan, eh? So, the discussion surrounding these hot topics should include the following. U.S. forces destroy 15th suspected smuggling boat. We want to talk about how these vessels that are transiting along a known narcotic trafficking route. We all know drug boats come from South America and they move their way up to try and get their drugs from South America to North America, but have that big market that is using up all this stuff, right? So they got to come along them same shipping routes other ships has come. It's very difficult to use a different route because these ships ain't trying to cost themselves to spend more time on the sea. So they can look for the shortest, quickest route and the most busiest route. That's how drug boats operate. I used to chase them, so I know we had to do our countermeasures to try and catch them. But once they come to the Bahamas, they really ain't trying to go no further. They come in to drop their stuff off or whatever the case may be. But when they leave those South American countries, they leaving for a long voyage. But what's been happening recently? They've been getting blown out of the water. Now this is the 15th one that was blown out of the water. Excuse me. And this one say 3 male narco terrorists. Now, where that word come from? Narco terrorists? This a made up word. I never heard this word before. Let me check the dictionary. Somebody please check the dictionary and call me. Let me know if narco terrorist is a word. I know it means narcotics, and they seeing these people now, not as drug smugglers as we know them, but drug smuggling terrorists. Because President Trump claimed and deemed that these are more than just drug smugglers. They are actually terrorists because the drugs they're carrying is terrorizing people in the United States. And President Trump said, I'm not having it. So if you look like one of them and you're traveling the route of one of them, we're going to find you and we're going to blow you up. Now we got to say, now this is totally unprecedented anywhere in the world. No armed forces anywhere in the world ever use their artillery in peacetime to blow up civilian boats, whether they think it was running drugs, running weapons, whatever the case may be. Never happened before now. So Mr. Trump is making strong statements. Now, whether it's a mistake or not, we can find out in due course, right? But Mr. Trump, I don't know if he even care. President Trump decides you are a narco-terrorist. I don't know if they make that one up to call them, but that's what they're calling them. And because you are a narcotic terrorist, we're going to blow you out of the water. So don't even attempt to make no move right now, because if we can find you and we can blow you out. That's how they going on. Now they say all, and this is what the U.S. is saying, all 3 terrorists on board were killed. So they say all 3 drug dealers. They say all 3 drug smugglers. They say all 3 occupants, all 3 terrorists. So they even dropped the narco now and call them terrorists once they're dead. They were killed. And this is what the defense secretary said. I got the quote. And he goes on to say, we will continue to track them, map them, hunt them, and kill them. That's quoted. We will continue to track them. In other words, we're looking on our radar to see when we pick up one of them, map them. We're going to put them on the map this way they is. Oh, that look like the narcotics run. Hunt them. You ain't much more hunting after you than track and map. But hunting means, hey, we out for you. And kill them. And they're not only killing the men on board, they're blowing up the whole vessel. Again, totally unprecedented. So, and goes on to say exactly how we treated Al-Qaeda. Now, we know Al-Qaeda was one of the biggest, most popular terrorist organization worldwide. Well, that's the name that pops up first when you talk about terrorist organizations. Al-Qaeda. Based on the days of President George W. Bush. And in saying that statement, it's kind of ironic that we're now talking about Al-Qaeda in a quote by the defense secretary, which brings up the name of George H.W. Bush, and simultaneously brings up the thought of Mr. Dick Cheney, who happened to have died last night. You know, Mr. Dick Cheney was the vice president under President George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush. And last night happened to be the night that Mr. Dick Cheney died. And I ain't here to talk much about Dick Cheney because that ain't nothing maritime in particular, right? But I just thought, while we're talking about terrorism and Al-Qaeda, and he died last night, and he served as the vice to President Bush. It all seemed to flow together, eh? Now, our next topic for the night is going to come under the cruise industry. And we're going to say that the cruise industry is on track for a 4th consecutive growth year. Now we know that in the past, cruise ships were moving, I would put term like exponentially, I would say. Yeah, I could say exponentially, but they're moving exponentially now. But when the COVID pandemic poked its ugly head up and said, we here to freeze the world. And then that's exactly what it did. It freeze most countries in the world, including the Bahamas, by causing lockdowns. Boy, those lockdowns. I can tell you I got some good stories with those lockdowns, and I got some bad stories with those lockdowns. But it really hindered a lot of progress worldwide, not just Bahamas-wide or regionally, worldwide. And you might recall, as I do, that off between Berry Islands and Bimini, along that southern northeast Providence Channel, we had a whole heap of cruise ships just anchored. And there was a lot of discussion as to why we allowing them to anchor there. They digging up our seabed. They're probably polluting the waters by pumping stuff out. And it wasn't like that, right? And I stood and I argued against the naysayers, because in times when cruise ships were blessing us, those years leading up to COVID-19 and the pandemic, we just took it all in. And when the pandemic came, we won't get down on them. And have we forgotten what Bay Street was like without those cruise ships? They say how soon we forget. How soon we forget what it was. Bay Street was like a ghost town. A lot of people started to hurt. Mind you, they last long enough, I guess, for it to manifest properly and really cause a problem for Bahamians. But it lasted a while. A short while, when the cruise ship agents wasn't making no money. The downtown stores wasn't making no money. The taxi drivers wasn't making that money from like they're making now. They're making heaps and heaps of money now, eh? The motorbike rentals, the day pass at some of our major hotels. Oh, you all really need to understand how impacting those thousands of people coming on those cruise ships are to Little Nassau. And thus, the reason why I'm saying over and over and over again that these cruise ships need to be able to visit every single family island in this country that are developed. And I don't map out. We have mapped out. Well, I have mapped out, based on my knowledge of patrolling the waters of the Bahamas for 13 years. I know where the deep waters are, where the shallow waters are. I know where the ocean touching the land. So I could tell you places where we could readily put a pier or a dock or an offshore jetty or whatever we want to put for a cruise ship, just the way the private islands did. And all of the private islands are now moving from anchorage to fixed docks alongside. You see, they realize that, and you could start with Berry Islands. You got Coco Key and Great Stirrup Key. One owned by Royal Caribbean, the next one owned by Norwegian Cruise Line, right? And they were anchoring for decades. Anchoring and using those tender vessels that they keep in the canal till the ship come, and they go out and they bring on a hourly or half hourly basis. They go to and from the ship bringing people, because they got like 4 and 5 of those tenders, right? And they huge now. They may be tenders, but they big. They way bigger than our water taxi would be given between Nassau and Paradise, because they got to go out in the ocean where the ship is anchored. Well, open seas. I wouldn't say ocean, because they can't anchor in the ocean, but they anchor on the edge of the ocean, eh? So they're in open seas, open waters, and these tenders got to be able to not only go out there, but bring tourists back from the ship. And when they bring them back, obviously they carry them back out again. And so the tenders have to be capable. Well, it's hard to say capable, but they got to be ideally suited. It's hard to say ideally suited. What I can say, you have to be fit for purpose. Is what we use in the maritime term, right, or in the military term. Fit for purpose. That would be fit for purpose because the passengers from those ships that are coming ashore are not avid seafarers. These are people who are ready to puke if the boat just rock once. And yeah, I say puke. Because that's what we say in defense for. Boy, use the pukey pebble. You can't take the sea if you puking every time the boat start rocking. How you can do your job? But the passengers are not seafarers. And they're not used to being on small boats in the ocean or in the open waters that is connected to the ocean. So for that little purpose, for that little tiny reason, these vessels have to be big enough to try and minimize the amount of effect that passenger is going to have on him based on the choppy seas when commuting between the ship on anchor and the quay itself where they come and have fun. And so after so many decades, Royal Caribbean decided, well, look here, this thing here, I mean, we got all what we need to make it happen. But it'll be so much better if we could build a fixed dock right onto the quay. And so we don't need them people to go on no tender. They will come from the ship straight on the dock and walk ashore like they do everywhere else in the world, like in Nassau and in Freeport. And we don't. But the first company, the first cruise ship company to do the tendering, to have their people come to their private island and not have to anchor off and tender in was who? Let me see if you all know. Ding dong 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 ding dong dong dong. I know you all don't know, so let me tell you all, right? It was not Half Moon, Castaway Key, that's it? Yeah, Disney. Castaway Key, what used to be Gorda Key, just off of Sandy Point there. When they built that, when they designed that key for Disney, they built a dock the same time. So there was never a time when Disney ship used to go and anchor off and the passengers used to be tended in. No, from day one, that ship was going straight into the dock. And Disney seemed to have gotten the message without even trial and error with those tendering, because Disney's second private location in the Bahamas, which just started, was it earlier this year or last year? I think it was last year, is Lighthouse Point on South Eleuthera. Now, understand something. Lighthouse Point, when Disney bought it and started to configure it for a ship to bring passengers there, didn't have no dock. It was just a point of, it was like the bay, just like the rest of Eleuthera. And nowhere else on the entire island of Eleuthera, including Harbour Island and Spanish Wells in them, do they have a dock that a cruise ship could come into. So although they had Princess Key and they had Half Moon Key in that area, both of those locations, even today, have ships anchor off and tendered in. Even today. So Disney Cruise Line got the message early. And anytime they buy an island, a private island or an area like Lighthouse Point at the very southeastern tip of Eleuthera, they make sure when they're designing that, the ship could come straight into the dock. And guess what happened after that? You get Carnival now. Well, even before Carnival, right? Let's go before Carnival. You had Resort World Bimini. And I could tell you about Resort World Bimini. That's my people, right? Resort World Bimini started to anchor the cruise ship off. Well, it wasn't a cruise ship. It was like a high-speed craft, But of course, they couldn't get into Bimini Harbor to begin with. But they used to anchor off, and they had tenders. They had like 4 or 5 nice big red and white tenders. Nice boats, right? That went out through Bimini Harbor into the ocean all the way up to the anchored vessel, which was right off the coast of North Bimini, and collected the passengers and bring them all the way back around. And so they were doing a tendering operation until a few years back, just before COVID, that they realized this is a big problem. It's a big problem. This is very inconveniencing to our guests. Some of our guests aren't seafarers, so for them to come from that vessel anchored out there and come all the way around to come through Bimini Harbor and then all the way up to Resort World, well, in some cases the government make them stop to the government dock too, and then let a taxi take them up, right? They had no choice there. The government made them do that because the government said, you bringing the people in there and they ain't seeing Bimini. No Biminites getting nothing out of this. No, man, stop. Every boat you come, the second one, you want to stop to the government dock, let them off there. And they configured the government dock to receive them from an ISPS perspective, and I was part of it, so I know, right? But that's neither here nor there. And I ran around with a whole heap of things, but all this matters. All this is about cruise ships coming in the Bahamas, to those private islands. And the reason why we need to put a dock on every single family island, and the government need to do that. They're not expensive. If you could use $200 million to buy a fleet of Defense Force vessels, you telling me you can't use $100 million to ensure that you got 10 docks on our family islands where cruise ships could go all the way in and tie up their ships? I know you could find the money. Is there a will though? Are we going to stay with our heads underneath our arms? And I might want to use a different term starting with A, but I say arms, right? Don't try call Oiko for me. Stay with our head underneath our arms and not realize the potential of cruise ships calling at our family islands simply because the government have provided a dock for the cruise ship to come and tie up. Now see, every one of these cruise ships with their private islands, only their ships could go there. You think anybody else could go to Carnival side or the Disney side or to RCCL Coco Key side? Well, Bimini got a couple of people coming there, but even MSC at Ocean Key, and they, of course, they from Jump Street, they always had a dock there because Ocean Key used to have bulk carriers coming, so like, MSC ain't had to worry about anchoring off, right? They just had to fix up the dock area and strengthen everything and configure it so that when they started, the ship would come straight in, and that's what they're doing today. So we got Resort World Bimini decided they could build a fixed dock where the people would get off the ship, and because the dock that they built had to be on the beach side or the ocean side or the western side of North Bimini, because of course no matter what they try to do on the inside, the channel would be too shallow for those big ships to get in and too small, there ain't no maneuvering room, right? So we know it had to be on the outside, but because of the depth of water and all the rest of that, they had to build a causeway. Well, is it a causeway? A catwalk. Well, they had to build something for the people to have to go out to get to the dock over the water. They could walk, but of course, Resort World is go big time. So they bought a series of trams. And they would have on an ongoing basis trams going to and from the dock to pick up passengers and bring them to the hotel and have fun in the casino and the restaurants and all that good stuff, good type of thing, right? So, and I guess I digress again, but I don't care about all that, right? Because we talk about things would need to be heard. And so we had Disney being the first one at Castaway Key to build a dock. And then we had Resort World. That was followed by Ocean Key, which is there for MSC Cruise Lines, right? And after those ones were built, we had one built by RCI or RCCL at Coco Key. And then Disney decided to do a second one. So Disney did another one, a second one I should say, at Lighthouse Point, Eleuthera, southeastern tip of Eleuthera. And then Carnival shortly thereafter followed with what a big one name in Freeport that they just put there, Celebration Key. And that dock at Celebration Key could hold 2 vessels. So I think the one at that RCI did at Perfect Day at Coco Key as well, I think they could hold up to 2 of their largest ships. And they got the largest cruise ships in the world. So Carnival has designed a dock that could hold 2 of a ship, and they actually have 2 ships a day. Carnival and Main and Carnival have the intention of building a second dock to hold 2 more ships by the end of next year, I understand. So these docks are berths that these cruise lines are building are very popular, and they realize that when you build a berth, you bring in money. Money comes with the berth, because now if the ship could come straight in, that makes it so much easier for the passenger to get from the ship to the shore. So let's think about this for a moment when you talk about our family islands. Every single family island in this country got a spot where we could put a cruise ship dock and be in business. So Abaco, well, Eleuthera already got theirs, right? They got a couple. Cat Island, down by Devil's Point there. Exuma, right on the outside of Stocking Island. Well, so what if you got to catch a ferry to get from Stocking Island to Georgetown dock? Hey, that's a short run. And that's never rough, because that's on the inside. That's like inland waterway. So you ain't going to have no problem catching a $10 ferry between them two, talking about it rough. Because it don't get rough up in there, right? So I still say Stocking Island would probably be the best place for Exuma. But Long Island, you could go into Clarence Town somewhere and rig something where those cruise ship could tie up. Or you could go on the northern end. Can you? I ain't sure about Long Island, but I sure Clarence Town area. And definitely on the south end. But I don't know if they want the people on the south end. But guess what? Every single one of these islands have unique tours that they could do. And of course, we got San Salvador with Columbus Point. San Salvador got so many places you could put a dock. But Columbus Point is a nice, pretty place, and it's close to Coburn Down, right? Close to the city. And then they could go to UE, catch taxi, and then go see the lighthouse and things like that. Go to Club Med and spend time having a ball with Club Med Beach and all the rest of that. It's a lot of different opportunities, right? And, well, Rumkey got Port Nelson. So somewhere off Port Nelson, you could put a dock for cruise ships to stop. They only got about 100 people. But guess what? Then you put that cruise ship dock, then cruise ships start to go there. That 100 will turn into like 10, 20,000. Because it's so much to do once a cruise ship is making a visit. Some of these Eastern Caribbean countries, right? Their main source of revenue is when that cruise ship comes twice a week or 3 times a week. In some cases, once a week, and that's a big, and that to them, that's a big deal. But of course, we take it for granted because we're so used to cruise ships coming in and yada, 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 and they tired of Nassau now, you know. They tired of Nassau to the extent that it has been verified, and I've read it, verified by our port, that only about 1/4 of the people, about 25% of the people that come off those ships when they come to Nassau. Isn't that horrible? That's because it's so monotonous. Many of them have been here. And then some of them, they ain't looking for no sin. They stay on the ship. They say, man, like, hey, I can just relax today. And when the ship leaves tonight, I'll just go and party on board the ship. But they ain't do that on the family island. Because once they get on the family island, oh, they got so many beaches. They got blue holes and they could go fly fishing and so much things they could do on those family islands. They could just go and take a walk because they ain't gonna worry about no more crime. They ain't gonna worry about no bunch of people harassing them. And this is the reason why our government needs to ensure that the cruise ship companies have an option to stop in the family. Do you know that there's a lot of cruise ships that come and they stop in Nassau because they're really going from Florida all the way down to the Eastern Caribbean? But they stop in Nassau, and once they pass Nassau, you know how much islands? They got like 2 and 3 days overnight on the sea without making a stop? Because our southern islands ain't got no dock for them to stop to. So if you put a dock in Maguana, for example, put a dock in like I say, in San Salvador, they pass those islands, you know, close, go into the Eastern Caribbean. Inagua, coming back up the Southern Channel. I wouldn't say Ragged Island, because Lord knows Ragged Island, I don't know if they could take a dock for a cruise ship. But who knows? Because that's a good stop too. Put one in Ragged Island. Ragged Island got plenty of people in Nassau who wouldn't mind getting back home, so long as they can be occupied by a cruise ship coming to Ragged Island every now and then. They won't be busy, but they'll be busy enough to make a couple of dollars and they don't need to be in Nassau, eh? So, yes, Ragged Island. And we need to do this. At least, let's map it out. Ministry of Transport, Port Department, you'll get together and map this out. Let Defense Force help you because, well, I mean, we got the port controller who's a Defense Force officer, so he knows how to map out things when it comes to ocean touching land, right? Plus, he could call on me because that's my boy. Boy, I know how to reach me. Plus, they have a whole Defense Force who could help them with this. So, we don't need to play like we don't know. This is an opportunity for the country to do so much better. This is an opportunity to decentralize all these people out of Nassau so they could go back to the islands, because Andros alone can have about 3 cruise ship docks. You got Morgan's Bluff already there, ready to go. Now that one, you ain't got to worry about that one there. You could put one off Dreexel. You could put one off Fresh Creek. And when I say off Fresh Creek, again, you could do a causeway like they did in Bimini. Because the land in Fresh Creek is not that far from the ocean. Right? So you could do things and you could blast a certain area. There's so much things you could do, right? So Andros alone could have a couple. Exuma probably could have more than one. Abaco definitely could have a couple, right? But let's put one on Southwest Point there, that's below Sandy Point for now, right? And, well, Ilutra got enough. Cat Island. You know that eastern side of Cat Island, that ocean side. We could put one anywhere along there. And then, of course, one to Hawks Nest on because you don't necessarily want to be where the prevailing wind's coming from. So come on the next side of the island and put one by Hawks Nest. Right? And anyway, let's go on with our program, because I could talk about this all day, all night, and then tomorrow. And right now, I don't talk too much. So, what we're talking about here is how the cruise ship industry is expanding so much that this is going to be the 4th consecutive year since COVID that the record of cruise ship passengers are going up. They projected for 2025 globally or worldwide 37.7 million cruise ship passengers. So that's almost 38 million cruise ship passengers. That's a lot of passengers, eh? Now, America's segment of that market is more than half. It's actually 20.7 million for 2025. And you know who get most of the American market? The Caribbean. And we know who get most of the Caribbean market? The Bahamas. Let's call it what it is. We're so fortunate and don't even capitalizing to make it better. The Port of Miami, they set a new one-day record by having 72,401 passengers joined a cruise ship in Miami on April 28th. You remember we talked about our record being some 28,000 in one day? And we saying, well, that probably gets shattered again, because it keep every year or other year, it keep going up higher and higher and higher. Okay, now that's a joke compared to that 72,000 Miami. I remember now, Miami, Port Everglades, well, we can talk about that some more, right? So, you know, they get cruises also going, excuse me, woo, something got me, my apology. Cruise ships always going during the summer period to, what a place name up in the cold place up in the Alaska. They have what they call Alaskan cruises, right? Which is in competition kind of with the Caribbean cruises. But Alaska only got 4 or 5 month window before it get too cold to carry passengers up there, and the sea get frozen and all the rest of that. So cruise ships ain't one chance that, right? So the Alaskan market is also increasing, because you get certain ports like Seattle is where you usually board the ship to go Alaska, right? And they go across to Canada, Victoria, British Columbia, Vancouver, and they stops that they make either going to or coming from Alaska. And those ports have set new records for passengers for 2025 as well. So cruise ship round and round is really going up. And while the cruise ship trade or cruise ship industry is going on the up, we in the Bahamas are remaining stagnant when it comes to our family islands. We remain stagnant. We're not projecting and going up with them. And they're making money, and we could be making money while they make money. But we don't have that vision. We got people working in areas like tourism and port authority or transport ministry that really should be looking at these things and projecting, right? I shouldn't have to tell them that. And you ain't get paid me, I can tell you anyhow. But come on, man, let's plan something. Let's put something on paper and say, this is the way we want to go for our people. We need to decentralize now, so we can do it through cruise ships. We need to give the people in the family islands more to do. We can do it through cruise ships. Just build some docks. One cruise ship coming in gonna need line haulers. It's gonna need taxis. It's gonna need tours. What else it gonna need? All kind of things. Right? And it ain't gonna happen if the government not only make it happen, but don't plan to make it happen. Get a lousy bunch of people in these areas that just need to utilize a little bit of foresight to make this happen. And I can stop talking about it. Y'all can probably get mad at me. I know you don't like me, and I don't care. I can tell you the truth. I don't really care what y'all, because my thing is, I love my country. And I hate to see opportunities not being exploited because we not using foresight. We just sitting on our laurels and quite happy for the status quo to continue, the shabbiness, the do-nothing approach that we want to take. You see, if we're going to put docks in our family islands for cruise ships to come to. That calls for work. That calls for drawings to be drawn up. That calls for locations to be identified. And our people don't like to work. Mind you, we getting paid, but we don't like to work. We just want to say, we Mr. So-and-so, or we Mr. So-and-so, and carry on the status quo. And not only in transport ministry and tourism ministry, you know. All I know. You talk about agriculture, you talk, don't mention immigration. Boy, the status quo. They're trying to clear up the problems with our migration problem. They're not using it. Mind you, they got things on the books and they wouldn't even do it. But I digress again. So, the Port of Miami set a new one-day record. Seattle, Victoria, British Columbia, and Vancouver, they all have records for 2025 amount of passengers, because now you got to remember the Alaskan cruises have come to close because we now in November and ships can't go up there nowadays. So they stopped over a week ago. The ships have all returned and ain't none of them going down. That's why you see you hear us say the cruise ship season starts in November. That's why at Nassau Cruise Port, they gonna have the rest of this month basically book out with cruise ships. Because those same ships that were going to Alaska when they were not coming to the Caribbean now have to come to the Caribbean. They have to come to the Caribbean. Because Alaska them too cold. Because on the eastern side they were going to what that place name up there? I think the only place they could go to now, if they still could, I don't know, is Halifax in Canada. They can still go to New York, of course, but even up there is scared. But you notice to be on a cruise ship and it's sticky cold? That ain't a good experience. That's why the Caribbean and when you go down to Europe, you get the Mediterranean cruises. Because they got cruises going to the Baltic Sea and the North Sea and all that, and all the way up to Iceland and Greenland and those places, you know. But only in the summer months. For the same reason. Norway, man, you know how cold them places get. You go on a cruise up there, you ain't want to come off the ship. Because you got to deal with that icy weather. Especially us Bahamians, you know, we don't take too well the cold. I mean, we really know what cold is in the Bahamas, but when you go up in there, you'll know what cold is. You ain't coming off that. I ain't coming off that ship, I tell you that. Anyway, I digress again. U.S., the United States, is a home port of 4 top embarkations in the industry. In other words, the 4 biggest home ports is right there in the U.S. Miami being the biggest one. Miami is the most, when you talk about the amount of people joining ships, Miami is the biggest, right? And that's followed by Port Canaveral. I thought it was Everglades, but it's Port Canaveral, which is up there off in Orlando area. That's Disney them kind of bad. They're number 2. And of course, Port Everglades is number 3. So the 3 that are within driving distance, well, I mean, in the U.S., everything within driving distance, right? But within 3 hours of each other in a car. Because you could drive to Port Canaveral from Miami in about 3 hours if the traffic cooperates with you. Those 3 are the 3 largest in the world. And guess what else? Those 3 are on the eastern coast of Florida. And whenever they leave to go out on a cruise, what's the first place they got to come to? They got to see Bahamas and pass through Bahamas, even if they don't want to. So, that's how blessed we are. We don't only have the largest home port for cruise ships in the world, we have the largest 3 right on our doorstep. Or we right on their doorstep. But yet, we wouldn't open up the family islands so that they can have new destinations. Cruise ships are always looking for new destinations. But either we dumb Are we stupid? I ain't getting no further. Because if you can't see that, that means you're dumb. If you could see that and you ain't doing it, that means you're stupid. Pick a pick. I want to keep it dumb. We that's dumb, right? I don't think the Bahamas officials just stupid. I'll hate to think that. Boy, but you're running a tight between dumb and stupid. Anyway, the U.S. have the 4 top cruise ports, home ports in the world in Miami, Canaveral, Everglades, and Galveston. That's in Texas, eh? As far as the international cruise market is concerned, I mean, for home ports outside of the U.S., they call it international. Barcelona is the number 1. And I thought it was, well, it can't be Rome, and it's Slovakia or Slovakia or whatever that name. They take a lot too. But Barcelona happened to take more passengers at Barcelona. That's in Spain, for those who don't know, than any other. And part of the reason is because, Barcelona is actually in the Mediterranean Sea. It ain't on the ocean side where the cruise ships got to go and catch hell. It's in the Mediterranean Sea. And when they go on a cruise, they normally go to the east or to the southeast. And they do an entire Mediterranean cruise from Barcelona. And for us, Bahamians, it's cheaper for us to go to Spain and take a cruise, because if we got to go beyond Spain, it's going to cost more in the flight to and from. So Barcelona is ideal for starting our cruise, if we want to do Mediterranean cruise, that is. And it's the biggest in the world when it comes to outside of the U.S. Big 4. The Caribbean is by far the most popular destination for Americans, because whenever the Americans are going to do a cruise, over 70% of them, up to 72% of Americans actually do Caribbean cruises. See how fortunate we are? Again, that's part of the reason why the big 3 is right in Florida. And we right on their doorsteps. All we got to do is open up our ports so that they can have a lot of new destinations. And trust me, they can use them. Because cruise ships are always being built. Cruise ships are always looking for new, and some of the destinations in Europe and the Baltics and whatnot, they putting restrictions on how much cruise ships can come in their port. They ain't like them that much. They telling them straight and plain, but we ain't really need y'all, we get plenty of land tourists too. Say, but we don't want y'all, too much of y'all in here clogging up our roads and our systems. So ease off. But we don't have that problem on our family islands. We ain't clogging nothing up. Don't get a whole big island with only a little bit of people that have fun. So let's open up our family islands to the cruise ships by putting a dock on every family island, so that every family island can get a piece of this pie. We get the silly season going on. Ain't nobody talking about cruise ship docks on the family islands. Nobody talking about decentralizing Nassau so people can have a reason and a means to go to the family island and make life easier for themselves. Should I say themselves? Theyself. Anyway, you all know I ain't nice. I ain't polished when it comes to. I ain't been to no college. I got my BT because I've been to England, and that's all I ever have. Getting too old, not have anything else, right? So, moving along this cruise ship line, Carnival. This is what's happening in the cruise ship as far as the amount of ships carrying on now, right? Carnival just ordered 2 180,000 gross ton ships. You notice, 180,000 gross ton. The only thing bigger than them is the ones with over 200 tons. There's a couple of them, and only RCL, Royal Caribbean get. I think Carnival just, Disney just got one that wasn't built for Disney, but they're utilizing it. I think in the Tokyo market. But anyway, Carnival has just ordered 2 180,000 gross ton ships. And when I say just ordered, they can start being delivered like next year, year after next, etc., etc. So every year they get a couple coming out, eh? Plus, Carnival ordered 230,000 1,000 gross. Now these that's almost 500,000 gross tons. These are huge. The only shipping company that would have cruise ships bigger than them would be the one that have like the 10 largest in the world. That's RCCL, eh? Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, or what do you say, Royal Caribbean International, whatever the case may be. They got the largest ones. Carnival and them are now realizing we got to have ships over 200, because this will be Carnival first 2 ships over 200,000 gross, right? But they bringing them in. They starting to reel them in. And where do you think these ships, these big ships can go? They can want them right in the Caribbean. At least one of them come in the Caribbean, eh? So if we build docks big enough for them on the family islands, there's no doubt that they can want to use Nassau and maybe a family island and maybe one of the private islands. See, it's now eventually, these cruise ships could use the Bahamas to do an entire cruise. Because every island have different different aspects of tours that they can offer cruise ships. A different feel, different beach, although all of them are very nice. So that's what Carnival did. They just ordered 280,000 gross tons and an additional 230,000. That's 4 big, huge, large ships Carnival will have over the next 5 years. Norwegian Cruise Line. Now, you know Norwegian got some big ships too. But they decided now they're going to go over 200,000 gross tons, because, you know, Norwegian ships was big, but they wasn't over 200,000 gross tons. They're actually now going to 225,000 gross tons, and they got 3 of those ships. Going to be coming in over the next 5-6 years. All these are huge ships. Where do you think they can go? And in addition to those 3, no, that's Norwegian straight with those 3. Because Norwegian got a lot of big ships now, but they ain't none over 200,000. Now they got 3 over 200,000. Now, what you think? You think Royal Caribbean get left out? No, Royal Caribbean ain't planning on getting leave out. Royal Caribbean has confirmed 2 more 250,000, 250,000 gross tons. Now they're the largest ships in the world. They got but 4 of them, 3-4 of them right now. They ordered 2 more of them. Plus, they just ordered 230-something thousand gross tons, like the Icon class. You know, the Icon ain't the largest in the world, but they next to the largest in the world. And so they got 4 of the largest ships in the world, RCI, get coming in the next 5 years. And guess what? The market is being flooded with those big ships. Bahamas can't get leave out of that. But what we doing in the meantime to prepare for this big expansion in cruise ships? We just sitting on our laurels and anticipating the status quo, because ain't nobody talking about planning for facilitation of these ships in the family islands. Nassau finish. Nassau already clogged up. We got plenty people, we got plenty cruise ships, it's just a big clog, plenty crime, plenty everything. But get the family islands some docks. And we will see which family islands these cruise ships like more than others. And eventually we can start putting structures like casino, like how they did in Bimini. Put a casino there. When the people get in there, they can go and gamble in the daytime. Because now, when these ships in our ports, they cannot gamble while they're in our port. So put some casino, let them go and try their hand there too. Well, somebody will do it. And MSC added 2 more. Again, over 200,000. These 217,000. Now you realize ain't none of these ships they building less, except them 2 from car, less than 200,000. So all these ships are massive, huge, beautiful ships. And they're averaging like anywhere between $2.5 to $4 billion each. That's the kind of cost to build them cruise ships. So these people spending some of the money they're making from our cruising on them. And they always need new destinations. And the Bahamas is so ideally fit and suitable for expansion with ports for cruise ships that want to come. We just need to use a little bit of vision. ensure that our authorities are using a little bit of vision to facilitate those family islands docks, so the cruise ships don't have to go and, oh, I need another private island because I got more ships and I need more stops in the Bahamas. No, man, but when we can do it, we can just want them drive this thing all in. No, man, they spend all the money on the ships. Let's spend some money on supply. And then, big bunch of money compared to what we'd be borrowing money for. Anyway, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I say we're going to move to our first break. When we come back, we can go into some further details on those things. Now, we wanted to also talk about the LJM, Lowell J. Mortimer, LJM Maritime Academy, the potential to develop local maritime professions, because that's now the National Maritime School of the Bahamas. And we can't sit down and allow them to do what they want. We can steer them because the BMA and the government is pumping a lot of money into that institution now. And I want to talk about that, but I don't know if we can reach that because this cruise ship thing's so sweet. There's just so much to talk about. Anyway, we can move out to a break. We're talking maritime, people. You are listening to Maritime Matters. We're going to move to our first break, and when we return, we will engage deeper concerns. And of course, we go open the phone line, so you all who know a little bit about this thing, or if you know big bit, that's even better. We expect that we'll get some calls and find out why our country is so laid back when it comes to preparing ourselves to make money out of these cruise ships. Again, you're listening to Maritime Matter. We shall be back shortly.
At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart. At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection.
Love 97 FM The Bahamas. And on the World Wide Web at www.love97fm.com.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah. I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain, and with me tonight is my wonderful, able producer, Mr. Craig Gibson. We are talking maritime. We are talking the U.S. forces destroying the 15th suspected smuggling boat and many other suspected smuggling boats. We're talking the cruise ship industry as they are on track for the 4th consecutive growth year. We're talking LJM potential to develop local maritime professions. You're listening to Maritime Matter, and on this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters airs weekly at 17:05. For those who don't know military time, who don't know maritime time, 17:05 is simply 5:05 p.m. every Tuesday here on Love 97 FM. The primary purpose of our show is to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities in the maritime sector, and we also cover current maritime issues from the domestic and international maritime feeds. The phone number to reach us, should you wish to get in on the discussion during this show, is 326-8255. Again, the phone number to reach us, should you wish to get in on the discussion, would be 326-8255. And we expect that you should want to get in on this discussion because we are speaking about maritime stuff that we need to fix. And we know that you have input that others can hear by way of this show. So please, feel free, let your hair down, say what's on your mind, and let's keep it rolling. To hear a replay of the show or any of our previous shows, simply hit us up at any time via our YouTube page. That's Maritime Matters Bahamas. 3 words, just like I love you. Maritime Matters Bahamas. So just go to YouTube on your electronic device and type into the search box Maritime Matters Bahamas. And just like that, woof, you will see a litany of our previous shows. You can pull up anyone you wish to listen to at any time you wish to listen to it. And this one that we're having tonight will be loaded on that YouTube page before the night is out, eh? So, let's talk maritime. We're going to go over our topics with a little more. Well, first of all, we want you to call in at 326-8255 and say your say. You may say, oh, I know that much about maritime. But yes, you do know some things about maritime. Or you can just call in and say, hey, Captain Bean, boy, you're sounding good. Keep it going. I listening. I'm loving it. Let us think somebody's out there with us, right? So, the U.S. forces destroys a 15th vessel. Now, let's talk about this U.S. Armed Forces blowing these vessels out of the water. First of all, you know, very recently, the U.S. Coast Guard, which is the organization that used to be responsible for tracking, capturing these drug smugglers or these drug vessels, they were not taking too well to the military getting involved. I think, and I don't know the details, so I only think, that the Coast Guard was being instructed or directed to blow some of these vessels out of the water. And the Coast Guard decided, well, we don't do that. No, boss. That's not something we do. We track them, we board them, and we bring them to justice. But that's not what the authorities wanted. The authorities wanted to make a bigger statement than just arresting them. The authorities wanted to send a message that we are now looking at these smugglers, drug smugglers, or potential drug smugglers, as terrorists. And We ain't trying to board them and arrest them. We won't blow them out the water like we used to do when we think people is working with Al Qaeda and all the rest of that. So we can flip the script, and what used to be is going to be changed to what the term is, what our commissioner commissioner of police used to use back in the day, zero tolerance. Zero tolerance. So we're going to blast you in the water. If we suspect, not if we prove, because we can't prove that, if we suspect you out there doing drug trade. Because when you engage in your drug trade, that's impacting some of our people in very negative ways. So we will regard you as a terrorist to our people. And just like how we had terrorists in dealing with world events, going up, blowing up all kind of embassies and bringing down the World Trade Center and things like that, we ain't want to arrest you. We want to blow you out the water. And over the past couple months, we've had 15 vessels so far that were targeted, well, they were tracked and blown out of the water under the disguise of they were suspected to be drug trafficking vessels because they were along the drug trafficking route and they couldn't be accounted for as a trading vessel, eh? I suppose they didn't have their what you call that thing name, what that navigation thing name now would be put on ships so they could say who they are, where they go, and where they come from, and all the rest of that. What do you call it? Identification, something, right? Ship identification. I don't know why I can't remember these things when they're on a talk show, but I think it's SS something. Anyway, it's the component on the bridge that actually sends out a signal through your radar, then through your radio system. So other vessels in the area would pick it up, and they would know the details of where you're supposed to be headed. So if a terrorist take over your ship, they would know that you're off track. Because if you're, and why I can't remember the name of this thing, man. Anyway, we ain't need to talk about the details of the tracker, right? We just saying that perhaps, and in most cases, these vessels do not have one of those installed. And somebody called me, tell me what it is, man. I know you all know. And if it's not installed, as far as the U.S. is concerned, we can't tell where you're all going. We can't tell where you're all coming from. You're all to us in the drug trade zone. So you all can't be merchant ships, because merchant ships are required, right, to have on their identification system. Ship security. I even even want to guess right now. I guess like my brain a little tired, right? But SSIB, ship security. No, anyway, that's the ship security light system. So somebody call me and tell me what this is, man. I know you all know, right? So these ships in the past, these ships were sighted and boarded by the U.S. Coast Guard. And even here in the Bahamas, we used to arrest mother ships and drug boats coming all the way up from Colombia and places like, well, we know someone's come from Jamaica too, right? So we just, recently, well, I don't think that was the authorities, but that one under Cuba where the Bahamians were on and they ended up in Haiti. All shot up, the boat all shot up, and so I don't think that was the authorities doing that, because if that was the American authorities, they would have been blasted out of the water. They wouldn't have been Geshuda, right? Because what's going on down there in off the South American coast is boats are being obliterated, and everybody died when that happened, right? So they're being blown up based on being in the route, and I guess based on not having them their identification on their ship to say who they are, where they're coming from, where they're going, and all the rest of that. And I keep forgetting the name, and I really need to move on from that, right? So what the Coast Guard hierarchies, the position they were taking is that that's not what we do. We actually board, search, and arrest. We don't just blow the water without going on board. And I think a couple people were forced to resign or were fired or whatever the case may be. And the Coast Guard was taken off the scene altogether and replaced by the military arm to say that we ain't no Coast Guard, we ain't boarding you, we ain't trying to arrest you, we just could blow you out the water. And as this is unprecedented, and we have countries around the world screaming out, this is wrong, this is murder, how could the US be doing this? And they may have a point, because quite technically, once you blow that ship out of the water, how could you prove they had drugs? How could you prove that they were drug dealers? How could it? Because people from some of the Caribbean countries were on some of those vessels. But that's not to say people from the Caribbean countries were not running drugs. But we're concerned about our people to the extent that we think if they're running drugs, they should be brought to justice, not killed. And so this is a very seismic shift in dealing with potential drug smuggling, whereby you're no longer arresting people, charging them, and confiscating their vessel in the drugs, but that has been shifted to detecting, suspecting, and blowing them out of the water. 326-8255. Do you believe this is right? Do you believe this is necessary? Do you believe this is just? Should we move away from the Coast Guard making arrests and the Navy blowing vessels out of the water? Or should we remain or go back to the Coast Guard detecting and arresting and lives not being lost? 326-8255. Nobody have no say on this. Nobody have no position to say, I don't think that's right, or I think that's left, or yeah, we suppose Bahamians are being blown out of the water. Well, I guess how many y'all say, what the hell Bahamians doing off the coast of Colombia? They need to get blown out of the water. I don't know if that's the case. Because we've had airplanes that were reportedly missing while in flight because military aircraft was blowing them out of the sky. Now I remember that happening many times in the 80s where we had pilots who we know they really could fly well, and then all of a sudden these pilots go missing. And it was said that, boy, the Air Force blew them out of the water out there. I mean, that's what we used to hear, right? We don't know if it's true. I guess nobody knows if it's true, because who would be out there other than the Air Force that are not doing commercial flights? Anyway, it is what it is. So that's one of the questions that the world is trying to answer, right? Not trying to answer. The world is basically saying, this is not the way to go. This is a war crime. Well, it can't be a war crime because this is a wartime tactic in peacetime. But I think it's a crime because the military is not supposed to be used for anything else but war. And while the U.S. authorities are saying that we declare war against drug deals, or drug dealers, or drug boats, or what we suspect to be drug boats, does that necessarily mean that that's really a war? Because the drug boats ain't fighting back. They can't fight back. They ain't got the weapons to fight no military arm. Are these actually drug boats? Because if I am a person who is dealing drugs, and I understand that if I out there and I am peeped, I am blown out of the water, why would I even make an attempt to do that? So these may just be empty boats moving from place to place for whatever reason, and absolutely no drugs involved. Because I would think that drug dealers right now are going to hold up from smuggling if they know that there's a possibility they're going to be they don't mind getting arrested, because they got lawyers waiting to try to get them off. They got people that they say, man, you could afford to get sacrificed, we could take care of your family. But getting blown in the water and killed? Boy, I ain't think nobody for that. But anyway, it happening, right? Now let's move to the next one. We were talking about the cruise ship industry. And we only got 5 minutes. My goodness, time going too fast. Mr. Producer, could I have another hour, please? He said, yeah, boy, one thing my producer now, he can tell you what you want to hear, but watch how quick he can cut me off in a 5 minutes up. And I can't blame him, he got a job to do too, right? So, we talk with the cruise ships, not only that they're expanding, to the extent where they have like at least 2 very large cruise ships a year coming out that need new destinations. But when in the world are you going to find? Now, I must say to you that they have plans to expand the cruising industry in the Far East. Not necessarily the Middle East, but certainly the Far East. Because China, for example, are making a lot of money these days. China's economy has risen. India's economy has risen, but India really in the Far East. But Singapore, people got a lot of money. Right? So you get some countries now in that area now where, because they also want to have Singapore as a home port for 1 or 2 cruise ships as well. Singapore and Japan. I'm not sure about China. Now, China has a lot of domestic cruise ships that they build in themselves. So they're not going outside because, China, they got a couple Chinese ports and they got inland ports and they're using them to just do cruises in China. But of course, where China's placed, you also got South Korea. I don't want to go as far as saying North Korea because North Korea is they don't just open up their doors to just anybody coming in. So I'm not sure North Korea even want cruise ships, right? But South Korea would definitely be a good stop for cruise ships. Japan. So in Chinese ports, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia. These people are getting more money now, they're doing well now. So the cruise ship industry is going to expand in that area. But they're still not going to be as popular as the Caribbean. And the Eastern Caribbean is not as popular as the Bahamas. But what is the Bahamas? Nassau and Freeport? No, they're also including those private islands. Because I want you to know that those private islands are busy on a daily basis. But those private islands cater to only their ships. But if we open up the family islands, those docks will cater to any cruise ship that want to come there. And if we got the big Disney, RCCL, Carnival, MSC, NCL, we got all the big fellas here. So if each one of them do one visit to those family islands per week, and when I say those family islands, I mean each of those family island ports, because they have 3 and 4 ships here at any one time. Some have 5, 6. So they got enough ships to want to use a family island port per day. And so they could scatter around, because what they could do is they could do their private island, they could do Nassau, and they could do with 3 different family islands. And that's a 5-night cruise. And then they could still have 1 or 2 nights where they just loafing out on the sea because they want to keep the money on board and they ain't getting no port. You know they do that too. But they ain't burning much fuel. They ain't gonna go too far. Each island is a different experience. So we gotta prepare a package and sell to them. My goodness, 1 minute left. Boy, I know. Anyway, but we in the Bahamas, we need to wake up. We need to get on our authorities, and ain't none of y'all want to call me tonight. That's all right. That's 2 shows now y'all ain't call. But I watching you now. We need to wake up, and we need to get on our authorities and make sure they wake up. And at least have something in the plans. Let us know what they are. Silly season coming up. Let's see what they have to say to us about these new cruise ship ports that are going to be built on the family islands, and let's see your plan, how many years it could take for you to put it in place, etc., etc. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, we are fresh out of time. I say thank you so much for listening to our show Maritime Matters. I'd like to say another good night to my good old Annie Mae, 92 years and going strong. I would like to thank my great producer, Mr. Craig Gibson. We didn't have no callers to thank, but of course our sponsors, 101 Pharmacy, Island Care Pharmacy, Bahamas Maritime Connection. We thank you for keeping the show going. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I am Captain Glenn Bain, and we are saying Maritime Matters, tick, 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 out.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah. I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. I've had nothing to live for, look like nothing